Hello, hello. Hello, hello. You guys, we have a lot going on today, but I'll share with you in a minute. So, number one, welcome to the Daughter Podcast, a place that is all about the total woman. My name is Samantha Grimes, and I am a wife. I am a mom of two. I am a senior pastor, a certified life strategist, prophetess, and founder of Daughter LLC, which is a private practice, women's ministry, and movement that offers a wide variety of services such as Christian coaching, Christian counseling, products, courses, books. We host things. And above all, we preach the gospel of Jesus Christ to his daughters. If you are interested in a free consultation to answer any questions or to get a quote, or you want to go ahead and book a one-on-one session, a group service, or anything we have to offer, please feel free to visit www.daughterllc.com or email us at samantha.grimescc@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, all the same handle at DaughterHSV. Also, if you would like to book me for a ministry engagement, you can email me at samantha.grimescc@gmail.com, or you can head to our Instagram at DaughterHSV and click the ministry request form in the link tree in our bio. Family, hello. Listen, several things. Number one, some housekeeping. I know that we missed a week on our podcast, okay? It's been kind of busy around here. But we are back like we never left. Thank you for being a faithful listener and a faithful watcher if you're watching on YouTube. And also you guys are recording on a different device, and I do not have my mic with me today. So we're hoping that the audio is just as good as with the mic. But we're going to be faithful to this episodes, and I'm going to keep pouring out and serving you guys to the best of my ability. We have already prayed off camera, and we are still in our theme, our season theme, the woman leader. Yes. And so we're talking all things leadership. That's not one dimensional. So that's leadership in the home. That's leadership in ministry. That's leadership in the workplace or any mountain of society, anywhere God has called you to be a leader, even if you're just a leader of yourself, right? We're talking about that, especially as women. Amen. So women leader, the woman leader. Our topic specifically for today is a doozy. Okay, we are talking about EQ versus IQ. Okay, EQ versus IQ. Back up our camera a little bit. Yes, EQ versus IQ. Now, when I say EQ, EQ is short for emotional intelligence. Okay, your emotional, your EQ. I have reference material. It's a book here called The Emotionally Healthy Leader, right here. How transforming your inner life will deeply transform your church, team, and the world. And it's written by Peter Scazzaro. Now, I am a fan of this book. I recommended it before in other spaces. My church, the church me and my husband pastor, we had our leadership team read this together. And we talked about it. We had discussion questions. We got into it. We got better, learned each other better as a team. Phenomenal book. And I'm going to read a page or two to you as reference material for what we're going to talk about today. But let me say this. Emotional intelligence is not a new thing. Okay. This is not brand new. It's been around for ages, but it has not always been a valued thing in many people's homes, a valued thing in the church, which I hate to say that, or a valuable thing in a lot of workplaces and workspaces. And a lot of people have high IQs. Anybody ever seen the show The Big Bang Theory? Right? The Big Bang Theory, all of these men that live together all work in different science arenas, and they all have extremely high IQs. But some of them really struggle with social cues and especially emotional intelligence. And so they have other characters on the show, like a Penny or like a Bernadette, or the women in their life, really. But not just the women, there are men too, but the women in their life to really help them understand basic emotional maturity. And for some of you, This is what you've been dealing with, and you did not have a language that this was the issue. Okay. Some people in your life, maybe it might be family members and relatives. It might be a workplace coworkers. It might be bosses. Yeah, especially with children, because they're still developing their emotional intelligence. They're children. And so we have to have grace for them. Um, sometimes in your marriage, sometimes it's in any space, especially y'all, some of y'all in ministry. Okay, some of your pastors, some of your leaders, and we're gonna get into it. We're gonna go there today. Um, their EQ is not very high, and they see no reason to raise it. You don't even realize that that's the fight you've been in. That's the issue you've been in. But I'm gonna pause, and I'm gonna read a page or two from this book, and then we're gonna get into today's topic in a heavier way. All right, the page I marked. So I marked the page for us to get into. Okay. Um, it's actually 2 pages technically. All right, so give you as a backdrop, the character he is talking about. He basically had a minister in his church, an assistant pastor. The assistant pastor was secretly having meetings with the Spanish church. So basically, they had different churches within the church that were from different languages, different origins, kind of international. And he basically had been having meetings privately that they didn't know about, and there was a church split, and literally out of 200 people, I think 150 left, and only 50 other people were left in the church. Nobody knew anything, and they all went and formed a whole new church with this assistant pastor as their leader. And so this thing really hurt him. He did not expect this. It was his, the beginning of launching his ministry. It really hurt him. And so I'm starting there. When accused like a lamb going to slaughter, Isaiah 53:7, I repeatedly just thought, just take it, Pete. Jesus would. But I was also full of conflicting and unresolved emotions. I felt deeply wounded and angry at the assistant pastor who had spearheaded the split. Like the psalmist, I was devastated by the betrayal of someone with whom I once enjoyed sweet fellowship. Psalms 55:14. I was full of rage and hate, feelings I couldn't get rid of no matter how hard I tried to let go and forgive. When I was alone in my car, curse words came out my mouth almost involuntarily. He's a blank, blank, blank. I was now the cursing pastor. I did not have a theology for what I was experiencing, nor did I have a biblical framework for sadness and grief. Good Christian pastors are supposed to love and forgive people, but that wasn't me. When I shared my predicament with fellow pastors, they were afraid I was sliding into an abyss of no return. I knew I was angry and hurt, but at a deeper level, I remained unaware of my feelings and what was really going on in my interior life. My larger problem was not so much the aftermath of the split, but the fact that my pain was leaking out in a destructive ways. I couldn't control it. I angrily criticized the assistant pastor who had left. I told Jerry, who's his wife, I wasn't sure I wanted to be a Christian anymore, let alone the pastor of a church. Most helpful counsel I received was a referral to a Christian counselor. Jerry and I made an appointment and went, but I felt humiliated like a child walking into the principal's office. In our sessions, I blamed my problems on anything and everything I could think of. The complexities of life and ministry in Queens, the unrelenting demands of church planting. Jerry, our 4 small children, spiritual warfare, other leaders, a lack of prayer covering. It did not yet occur to me that my problems might have their roots in something to do with me. I somehow managed to keep life and ministry going for another year before I finally hit rock bottom. On January 2nd, 1996, Jerry told me she was quitting our church. This is his wife, that was the end of any illusions I may have had about my innocence in the mess that had become my life. I notified church leaders about Jerry's decision and acknowledged my uncertainty about what should happen next. The elders suggested that Jerry and I attend a 1 week intensive retreat to see if we could sort things out. So we packed our bags and spent 5 full days with 2 counselors at a nearby center. My goal for the week was to find a quick way to fix Jerry and to end our pain so we could then get back to the real business of life and ministry. What I did not anticipate was that we would have a life transforming encounter with God. This was my second conversation, and much like the first, I had the experience of knowing I had been blind and suddenly received my sight. God opened my eyes to see I was a human being, not a human doing, which gave me permission to feel different emotions such as anger and sadness. I became aware of the significant impact my family of origin was having on my life, my marriage, and my leadership. Although I initially felt shocked by it all, the awareness also offered me a newly discovered freedom. I stopped pretending to be somebody I was not and took my first steps to be comfortable with Pete Scazzero, with my unique set of strengths, passions, and weaknesses. And Jerry and I discovered the importance of love as the measure of maturity and reprioritized our schedules to place our marriage before ministry. However, the second conversation also introduced me to the painful realities I could no longer deny. I was an emotional infant trying to raise up mothers and fathers of the faith. There were large areas of my life that remained untouched by Jesus Christ. For example, I didn't know how to do something as simple as being truly present or listening deeply to another person. While I was a senior pastor of a large, growing church who had been trained in two leading seminaries, attending the best leadership conferences, and been devoted follower of Christ for 17 years, I was stunted emotionally and spiritually. For nearly 2 decades, I had ignored the emotional component in my spiritual growth and relationship with God. It didn't matter how many books I might read or how much I devoted myself to prayer, I would remain stuck in repeated cycles of pain and immaturity unless and until I allowed Jesus Christ to transform aspects of my life that were deep beneath the surface. I discovered that my life is not as lot as I discovered that my life is a lot like an iceberg. I was aware of only a fraction of it and largely unaware of the hidden mass beneath the surface. And it was the hidden mass that had wreaked havoc on my family and on my leadership. Yeah, that was so good to me. Um, he's talking about a concept that is so often, like I said, in leadership across the board. He said something that I think is so profound. He said, I was an emotional infant trying to raise mothers and fathers in the faith. How many of us with love have you ever felt like that? Like, or maybe felt like you engaged with somebody like that. Y'all, with love, there is a concept or a perspective of arrested development. Okay. And there are people who they are 40 and 50 and 60 and 70 and 80, but they are 10 years old here. Their emotional maturity is that of a child. And so not only are they offensive, they don't even understand how profoundly offensive that they are. They don't even realize how big of a dig and a stab. And then they're flabbergasted that people don't forgive them quickly or don't trust them quickly or don't let them in their space quickly. It's because they have the emotional maturity of an infant, the emotional maturity of a 5-year-old. You ever argue with a 5-year-old? It's frustrating, right? You're trying to be serious and tell them and let them know, I know I am, but what are you? Because they're 5. They're children. And some of you, they're adults. Sometimes you're a boss, older than you, but emotionally, mentally, they're 5 years old. And it's not that IQ is not valuable. It's just that EQ is valuable too. And this episode, I really want to drive home the reality that as leaders, it is so important that you are emotionally mature. Okay? God is calling you into leadership, God, in any capacity, whatever He's calling you into. And you're going to have to deal with things that are outside of your comfort zone. You're going to have to deal with things that you think are just childish and immature, yet you don't get to be childish and immature back. You don't get to have the last word. You don't get to make sure that they know you ain't the one to be tried. You ain't the one to try or play with. You are the leader. You have to be the adult, even if that makes it look like you're losing. Even if that makes it look like you're not saving face very well. Emotional maturity, emotional intelligence is on the top list of top 10 valuable tools that you have as a leader. And sometimes so many leaders have abused and have hurt. Parents have abused and have hurt. Bosses have abused and have hurt because they did not have a value of this concept. They did not have a value of this idea, or no one ever told them, right? And here's the thing: when you don't value something, it doesn't get a chance to see this. It doesn't get a chance to see the light of day. It doesn't get a chance to grow. It doesn't get a chance to do and to be any and everything that it was called to be. One thing I want you to consider is the aspect number one of blindness. Okay. So a lot of times when it comes to emotional intelligence or a lack of emotional intelligence, the first thing that keeps us from growing is blindness, right? You actually don't see it. Y'all, I'm going to say something that I know is going to offend. And so let me preface this by saying, I love you. I have no desire to hurt you, and I gain nothing by offending you, but I still might. Everybody's not jealous of your anointing. Sometimes you just have character issues. Sometimes you lack emotional intelligence. And so, because of that lack of intelligence, you mishandle people. And their response to you is the response of someone who has been hurt, the response of someone who has been offended, the response of someone who is still trying to grapple with the encounter they just had with you. Now, obviously, we're not delusional. We're not going to expect everybody to be good to us because we're good to them. Some people, they're just having a moment, they're just having a day, and you got to give people grace. But there's a whole different can of worms, okay? When you are a little unbearable, okay? Right? Some people do not have a grasp. Sometimes they're just so focused on what it is that they want that they don't realize that they're making other people feel used. They might be beating up on other people. They may be overworking other people. They're not considerate. They're insensitive. Let's take it off other people. Maybe it's us. Maybe it's you. Okay, listen, I'm not bringing this up to shame you. I'm bringing this up to help you understand that you can't do this blind. If the blind leads the blind, everybody falls in the ditch. If the blind leads the blind, we never get anywhere. We never go anywhere. As a leader, no one's expecting perfection from you. And no one's expecting you to have all the answers. And nobody is, wants you to hurry up and just get it together. But you have to act like the Bible says, search me, O Lord, and know me. Know my inward parts. The psalmist was asking for the Lord to reveal to them what wanted to remain hidden. And sometimes we would like our issues to stay under wraps because we don't want anything to cause us to not feel good about ourselves, to not see ourselves as wonderful and great. And you are. But at the end of the day, everybody got stuff. Let me tell you something firsthand. I got stuff. I am not a perfect person. I am not somebody who just has no issues in life. It's just so peachy for me. No. Just as much as God speaks life into me and affirms me and loves on me, He gets in my business and He calls me out and He deals with my issues. Things that, maybe came from my parents or came from a relative or came genetically, and then things that ain't got nothing to do with them. They're my personal issues. Okay? And that's love. But I have to give Him permission into those spaces. He said something so good. He literally said he had been serving in ministry. He had been serving God for 17 years. He had multiple ministry degrees. He had been at the big leadership conferences. His church was growing. And him and his wife were ready to quit the ministry. Matter of fact, his wife did quit the ministry. Okay? He had given no attention to his marriage whatsoever. He was completely shocked when a whole flood of people had a church split. Like, it's easy for us to look at the character and focus it on the reality that what kind of evil leader would take your people? We don't know what kind of a pastor he was. Sometimes, y'all, with love, the enemy didn't take your people. What happens if it was God? The Bible tells us that God deals more harshly with teachers and with leaders. Okay? Not harshly as in He's beating you, but there's a greater standard. There's a greater responsibility because of that position. God's going to remove his sheep if they are in danger. This man was not dealing with any of his issues. He was immature. He was an emotional infant, and it probably showed in his leadership. It definitely showed how he treated his wife and his family, and a whole majority of his church walked away. We would love to say that was the devil and he's against the ministry, or maybe it was you. Maybe it was you. But he chose, y'all. He chose to be blind. He chose not to see it. He chose to believe that it was everybody else and he was tripping. And he was so thirsty. As soon as you called him out on something, let's hurry up and fix it so I can get back to ministry or I can get back to life. Does this resonate with you? How many things the God's trying to deal with and talk to you about and help you work through and mature from a place of love? But God, I want to hurry up and get back to my career. I want to hurry up and get back to feeling good about myself as a mom. I want to hurry up and feel good about myself as a ministry leader. I want to hurry up and feel good about myself in business, honey, because I'm a boss. And the very thing that he's trying to deal with is what's going to be the fuel for you to be a good leader, a good mom, a good businesswoman, a good teacher, educator, whatever it is that you may do, a good writer. Sometimes your creativity is a little, because of what is not being dealt with. Pastor Judah Smith says it best, and I actually read his book about it. How is your soul? I've talked about this before, even in a sermon not too long ago, but some things are soul issues. And some soul issues have to be dealt with spiritually, y'all. Some of your emotional infancy is because of areas in your spiritual life that you are avoiding. Y'all, I knew someone, not gonna say their name, they raved about how much they prayed all the time. They would rave about it. They would talk about how many hours they spend in prayer and how early they get up in the morning and how when people would pray, they're like, girl, you know how I pray. Like they just felt like their prayer was just so impressive against all these other people that were praying at the time. And yet they struggled with pride the hardest. They struggled with things. So I'm like, I said to myself one time, I wonder what you're praying about. And sometimes, with love, family, and I'm just following the spirit at this moment. Some of us are really great at spiritual warfare, and we're really great at calling out demons. And it's not that that's not a valuable part, but we can use the things of God and even God Himself to distract us and to run away from the things that are uncomfortable and hard. But dealing with the things that are uncomfortable and hard are the fruits of a believer. What does the Bible tell us? It says that what does He reward good fruit with? More pruning, so that it may continue to bear good fruit. You got to understand, your enemy wants to contaminate. He wants to cause weeds to grow up with the flowers, and those weeds to cut off the flowers' air supply. And guess what? You don't even know it. You don't even know it. You have no idea. Not because God is not telling you, you've decided that part of my relationship with God, the chapter is closed and I will not be opening it. Sometimes, y'all, some of you have dealt with so much verbal abuse and criticism in your life that you don't want God to tell you anything about yourself. You don't want people to tell you anything about yourself. But the problem with that is that you can't grow that way. And God is not them. God, y'all, I'm telling you from experience, God is the only God that can tell me something. And I'd be like, it's low key disrespectful. Like, you calling out what? And in the end, I'm crying tears of gratefulness. I am literally feeling how deeply and profoundly He loves me. He's not beating me up or bullying me or just telling me I ain't never good enough or criticizing. Some of y'all have quit counseling because you got tired of the fact that every time we had sessions, it's something new coming out that's not good about you. That's humility 101. It's not that you don't need encouragement and you don't need life spoken into you, but sometimes you need a balance of both. We also need some hard truth, right? And even I talked about this with a client just yesterday. There's a concept of I'm healed versus I'm healing. The concept of I've grown to I'm growing. When something is healing, when something is growing, that language is different. It's implying that it has not arrived, that if you bump up against it, it might still sting, it might still hurt, but it does not mean a scab has not formed. It does not mean that it's not still transforming and or changing. And so I think that's important principle to understand, is that you have to decide that I'm not going to be blind to things. Even if I ain't got it all worked out right now. You can't fix yourself anyway. You can't. But God wants you to see it so that you may surrender it, and that he may work on it through you and with you, and that he may be with you when it's time for you to die to your flesh, when it's time for you to do hard things. Y'all, he said it in the book, when it's time for you to just be present in your life. Kids, and I'm saying this as a mom, I have two very small children, and they're not present all the time. They're sitting at the table, but their mind is thinking about Miss Rachel. They're in and out of play mode at all times. And there are serious things. Hey, you have to get a bath. Hey, you got to get into bed. Hey, you got to finish your food. Hey, you got to eat your vegetables. And but they don't want to be present with that. They just want to play and just have fun and do everything that makes them feel good. And you know why? Because they are emotional infants. They're children. But some of us, you grown and you're having a hard time being in the moment, being present. And so, because you have that hard time, you have no sensitivity to others. I want to tell you something. Everybody's not sensitive. Sometimes you're just offensive. Takes a big boy, big girl, okay, woman, man, to be real about that. Like, you know what? I'm aware that my sharp tongue, my directness, my attitude, me, I ain't about to stop saying how I want to say it, and they gonna be all right. That, you know what I mean? I don't mean, there are times you gotta be firm. You gotta say what you mean what you say. You gotta, that's true. But that's not every time. That's not all the time. You have to decide I'm not going to be blind to my emotional intelligence. I'm not going to let it dwindle down to nothing. I'm going to let it grow. A person that's really smart, that has a high IQ, they may not be in college anymore or paying any more money for any more degrees, but they're constantly reading. They're constantly studying. They're constantly learning articles. They're constantly observing life. They're always feeding that IQ, that it may grow higher. It may be more effective, because why? It's only going to make them better at their job, better at whatever it is that they do, right? Another thing is, you have to decide that you're not going to be too busy for you. You're not going to be too busy for you. That's the problem. Some of us, our emotional intelligence hasn't had a chance to grow. It hasn't even had an opportunity to be put in situations to be tested, because you're too doggone busy. And I'm not meaning the responsibilities of life. I mean, you make yourself too busy. You will choose something else every single time. You are too busy for you. And this is a very tempting thing in leadership, because there really are a lot of things that get done, and there's a lot of people that depend on you, and there's a lot of work, and there and you want to be a good steward, and you want to be like, all of that is understandable. But if you do not carve out time for your own development, you are going to begin trying to raise mothers and fathers, raise children, raise whatever it is that you're raising in the industry you work in on fumes. And now you're irritable, and you're disrespectful, and you've forgotten why you do what you do, and you're wondering if you even still like it, if you even still love it. You gotta make time for you. I say this to single moms and moms all the time. The Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, you don't have anything to bring to your family. Sometimes you gotta let daddy have it and go take a bath. Put the kids in a room and go pray. Go pour into yourself, so that you may have something to pour into them. And you understand that they're watching and learning from you. Children don't do what you say, they do what you do. Okay? And so if mommy doesn't ever rest, it teaches me that when it's time for me to be a grown up, I won't get a chance to rest either. And rest is a commandment. And so that keeps me from wanting to grow up, because growing up based upon what I see at home means that I no longer take care of myself. I don't rest. You don't want that to be your life. So you got to stop running away. Your emotional intelligence needs an opportunity to develop. You need the opportunity to become emotionally healthy, right? When that part of your soul is healthy, it's going to naturally begin to grow. It's going to cause you to pay attention to things, going to be sensitive to things, and to be mature about things that you normally wouldn't. Right? Maybe even your friend group. Like, you wouldn't consider that leadership because we're all friends and nobody's above anybody else, but you can take the lead in things and say, you know what? I realize this is where my friends are. This is where they are. So this is how I'm going to handle it because I love them, but also because I love me. And the last thing, because this is getting long, the last thing that I believe is going to be a great prayer point in growing your emotional intelligence and becoming more emotionally healthy is asking the Lord to help you to value what he values. Yeah, I'm going to say something again. It's going to be a little disrespectful, but no, I love you. One, and this is actually very much focused on ministry. One aspect of ministry is not more valuable than the other. And so many people feel like I'm not into that kind of thing. I'm more of a spiritual warfare person, or I'm not into that kind of thing. I'm more of a soaker. I'm not really into that kind of thing. My mandate is evangelism. No, it's evangelism, you know. And a mature believer values whatever God values. Their identity is not tagged to any of those things. Their identity is tagged to sonship. And so if God values emotional health in that, I'm going to pursue that. And some of you, with love, you're not pouring the right things into your people. They know how to cast out demons, but they don't know how to deal with their inner demon, which is them. They know how to rabashata in tongues, and trust me, that's going to deal with some things spiritually that English cannot handle. But then, like practically, how they going to get from Monday to Sunday? They need your leadership in this area. They need your leadership in the things that are not popular. They need your leadership in the things that are not popping. They need your leadership in the things that are not fivefold related necessarily. They need leadership in things that you feel like doesn't match your mandate, your whatever the case may be. Let me tell you something. It was a testimony of a particular apostle, and he had traveled all around the world, and he had cast out demons and grown out ligaments and tendons and healed the sick and all that type of things. And he got back to his home church, and it was an older saint, older woman of God in her 70s, I believe. And she had this real bad, like ingrown bunion pain on her toe. Like it was bad. You could see it, but like it was to the point like she might have surgery. And she ran into the apostle. And to her, she was a generation where, you know, she didn't know about apostles or anything like that. That's her pastor. And so she's going to go to her pastor. So she went to her pastor and said, can you pray for my toe? I've been having this kind of pain and I'm having a difficult walking or whatever. And when she lifted out her foot, mind you, her shoe was on. She didn't pop it out to show him. She just, you know, stretch your hands and pray. He was so offended with her. He said, can you believe that? I am an apostle of Jesus Christ. I have done XYZ, XYD. And he thought he was too high and too good to pray for her toe. As a saint, she wasn't disrespecting him or dishonoring him. If anything, she thought so much that if the apostle prays for my feet, surely I won't have to have surgery. But he handled her so poorly. He was so immature about it. He was just so focused on his title and his name because he may be grand in knowledge and grand in gifting. But his ability to discern the need of a woman in the moment was the age of an infant. So a maturity in Christ is I value whatever God values. And God doesn't just value your intelligence in spiritual warfare and your intelligence and your ability to preach or your ability to sing or your ability to dance. God values your ability to have a healthy soul, to deal with the emotional part of who you are. Like to ignore any part of who you are is to ignore who you are. And y'all, we are emotional people. It doesn't mean that you're weepy and you're just sensitive and everything just makes you sad and you're just always talking about your feelings all the time. That's not what being emotional. It just means that you are a person who feels things. And so many people feel like they're not emotional. And the truth is they just don't deal with their emotions. They got really good at suppressing it. And I fear the day it goes off like a ticking time bomb. You got to deal with yourself. And family, I'm not saying that just because I counsel. I'm not saying this just because it's kind of, something I talk about from time to time. I'm saying this because as a leader in any degree, you got to be able to deal with yourself if you're going to deal with all these people. Y'all would love this. There's a certain caliber that God can't trust you with yet. You asking for it, but God can't trust you with it yet because of what you won't deal with on the inside of you. Leadership is something that requires emotional maturity, not just knowledge, not just skillfulness, not just the ability to use big words and sound impressive. You have to actually be an adult and hear, not just in the age. So that's all I have for you guys today. I love you so much, and I will see you next episode. Bye.